felt like he was had been out of sorts, out of rhythm. I think he'd had a bad couple games relative to his standard as a play caller. The offense was something was off. And this is before McCaffrey. Like, you shouldn't score 14 points against the Atlanta Falcons with Kittle, Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel. Like, that should not happen. I don't quite understand, and I know he saved the day in a weird way today, Ray with the fumble catch, why he plays as much as he does. And part of it, I guess, is that position. You can't just run routes all day. You need some breathers. Like, you do need some. It's kind of like there's a reason Nick Bosa doesn't play every snap. Like, you do have to rotate guys.
And Ray obviously can do more than Danny Gray can. I mean, the catch he had when he got just blasted by Taylor Rapp was pretty impressive.
That was a nice catch. One thing you would give Ray, even on his returns, he's not scared. Like, I feel like he kind of blows shoulders, like goes up. Like, he's not hesitant as a return man. So I do get why coaches would like his mentality, but like Kyle was not messing around. He was feeding Ayuk the ball. Once, like even Olsen mentioned, he's like, they're playing a lot of soft coverage here, and he's like, it's pretty clear they're going to Ayuk. They ran some plays for Kittle. They did not mess around in terms of like part of the mentality coming into this game was we're going to shove it down your throat with McCaffrey and obviously Wilson. They kept 4 tight ends up, and part of it is like, well, is that because 2 tight ends kind of equal juice? Like, we need multiple bodies. Like, one guy could get broken at any moment, taking on
back
like
to
Bobby
playing
Wagner.
Fullback.
Yeah, so I just think that he came in with the mindset of we're going to ride McCaffrey and we're going to throw Kittle and we're going to throw Ayuk the ball. And I think sometimes throughout this year they've kind of – it might be Jimmy's rhythm. I don't know, but Kyle's kind of – I don't want to say be the smartest guy in the room, but just overthought it a little bit. Like, you watch Andy last week against Kyle, like, it actually wasn't that complicated. He's like, I'm just going to throw screens when you're going to get up. My fastest guy on my team, I'm going to hand it on end rounds, and then we're going to feed Juju and Kelsey the ball. Like, this isn't that complicated. We're not going to try to force feed our third or fourth wide receiver down your throat. And maybe it became easier when, like Juwan Jennings and Debo are just gone, right? And basically once Christian gets there, you're like, no one else, Ty Davis Price, you're not getting a carry today, buddy. So he didn't even have, you could argue sometimes with so many players, you do overthink the menu. Where like you would say the history of like Mahomes and Andy over the last 4 years, like you watch them play, they basically just throw it to 10 and 87.
Yeah.
Right. And they sprinkle in some other guys, but it's like, where do you think the ball's going to go? Well, I watched the tight end and I would watch Tyreek Hill. And this is what bothers me about the first half against Cooper Kupp. It's like, I just know how hard coaches work and how much time they spend. And you could argue sometimes the hard work is a little overkill. Like, you don't need to be at the office 18 hours because I know you spend all this time game planning and then the game starts and they're just throwing it to 10 every fucking play. And I'm not acting like he does it to everybody. So he's clearly a great player. When you're a great player, you're going to get yours. It's not like people go into the game like, I wonder who Mahomes is going to throw to. Of course they think Travis Kelce. But, like, how can you have these plays where he's wide open consistently? I can't fathom that. It was crazy. It was like, what are we doing here? If we're a defensive staff, who else is beating you? If Allen Robinson's going to beat you, I'll tip my cap to him. Especially Higbee got banged up. I don't get it. And Kyle had the mindset, him and Sean were just like, we're just going to feed our horses. And D'Amico clearly did something at half that, slowed everything down, and McCaffrey just kind of took over the game.
To your point on Ayuk, though, and the irony is they've lost the last 2 games. 11 targets against Atlanta, 11 targets against KC, 6 targets against the Rams, 83, 82, 81 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's been really good, but I don't know that he's been any different than he's already been. He's just the same guy.
He's a sweet player.
Kind of the beautiful thing about Ayuk is that you could ignore him for a while, but when you need him, he'll be there. Because it feels like definitely early in the game, he and Kittle were both getting ignored in the past game.
How many catches does he have today? 8?
He has 6 today.
So he has 1 yard. So he has 38 on the season through, I guess, 8 games isn't the halfway point anymore. I mean, he's on pace for.
I got him at 32.
Well, he was at 32 through 7 games. Did he miss a game this year?
No. So you're saying that? So maybe the totals haven't. This box score ESPN has the Rams game on it, but maybe it hasn't added up at the bottom.
Yeah, I have. Looking at his wiki stats, it says 7 games, 32 catches, 3 touchdowns. So if you add 4 touchdowns, 38 catches, I mean, he's on pace for 8 or 9 touchdowns and 85 catches, which is a very, very good year with not exactly playing with the top 12 quarterback, right?
Not exactly.
Did have a top 12 game today, though, I thought.
To your point on Shanahan, yeah, he did. Jimmy did. But to your point on Kyle, like their first drive, they missed the chance, right? The first drive was the Ray McLeod deep ball. And I thought I feel like I was watching the same game again, where they miss opportunities to score a touchdown and it kills them. But what was different this week was they scored in the red zone. Touchdowns. They scored touchdowns in the red zone. 3. The Rams had only given up 4 red zone touchdowns all year coming into the game, and the Niners scored 3 red zone touchdowns. And, part of that is just Jimmy. Like, Jimmy made 2 pretty incredible red zone touchdown throws. The one to Kittle was also gorgeous, and the one to McCaffrey was very good. And then the other red zone score was McCaffrey running it in. But that was a big difference in the game. Like, in just how the play calling felt was cool. Running a bunch of plays between the 20s is great, but can you score in the red zone? Yeah. And today they did. And part of that is, Jimmy just threw an interception last time, and this time he threw a touchdown. But I do think Jimmy's pick last week was partly on Kyle. I don't think that was just Garoppolo, because Garoppolo wasn't in a position to throw it away. That would have been a grounding last week. So I'm with you. And maybe it makes it easier when you got McCaffrey, but it felt like there was quite a bit of variety. They never, I could be wrong thinking about it, I didn't feel like they ever got stuffed on back-to-back plays. Like, they'd get stuffed a couple of times, but they didn't get stuffed on back-to-back plays. It didn't feel like hardly at all.
And that's been happening to them a lot, right? Because they try to establish the run, and if you go run on back-to-back plays and you gain 1 yard, you're at 3rd and 9, you're thinking, oh, this is a disaster. And they were consistently, this goes back to what you said earlier, in manageable situations, more than manageable. I mean, they were playing, at times, Canadian football. I mean, they were getting first downs in 2 plays. And to me, if they're going to be potent in the red zone, which they should be, even though you watch them, with Juwan not there, minus Kittle, their weapons aren't tall, right? Ayuk, and when Debo comes back, and McCaffrey aren't size mismatches. Like, you watch A.J. Brown's touchdowns or DK Metcalf when he gets touchdown, he has the size advantage, like throwing an alley-oop. There's one thing, like any guy, John Morant can get an alley-oop like just by himself. Only so many guys can get alley-oops in traffic. It's usually power forwards and centers, right? And there is something to be said about like the touchdown makers. Hopkins had a couple plays today. DeAndre was like, Jesus Christ, because he's a big target. And he's actually probably not as tall as you think, but he plays long. CD plays long. Obviously, most of these tight ends, including Kittle, play long. But like, if McCaffrey can play long like that, and Juwan Jennings is a big body, they just have some more options. Plus, what makes the Niners scary is they can get the perimeter now with Debo and McCaffrey going a couple different ways.